All right. Well, Linda, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Linda?
Okay. I'm 41. I'm a Christian and a mom of, I have a family of 6. So I have one biological daughter and I have 3 stepkids. I'm a full-time remote a business advisor. So I've been home for the past 3 years. I've been fortunate enough to work from home during that time. I love cooking and reading and anything outdoors. That's pretty much me.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah. So I am so excited to hear your story, Linda. I mean, we talked about this, but I think we're gonna kind of focus on co-parenting today. But I would love to hear it from the beginning. I mean, tell us a little bit about Addie and how she came about.
Sure. I met her father. It's actually a funny story because I was went to school here and I was my plan was to move back home, which I'm originally from Long Island. So I was going to move the very next day. And it was a Friday night, and my girlfriends invited me out to just like last hurrah, let's go, celebrate your leaving. And then they convinced me, um, you know, they were trying to convince me to stay and everything. And that night is when I met Addie's dad.
It was fate, I guess.
Yeah. So my girlfriends convinced me to stay, and then that's how him and I ended up. It was just kind of random encounter. So we were married and together for 8 years, and then we had Addie a couple years after we got married, and then things just weren't where we needed it to be. No one gets into marriage thinking that they're going to get divorced, but it got to that point. We had tried counseling, we've tried lots of different things, just didn't work between the two of us. And so we decided to divorce when Addie was 5. So it was hard in the beginning. I mean, him and I, the first thing that we talked about was, you and I couldn't make it work, but that's not Addie's fault, so let's make it only about her and try to parent her because she needs us. So we both agreed that we would co-parent, Addie. And that's pretty much how it was since the beginning. Anytime, even though we were both, okay, this is not going to work, you still get emotional, it gets, you still have personal feelings towards things. So whenever either one of us would kind of go down that rabbit hole, we just would either get off the phone or stop, like, hey, this is not about you or I, it's about Addie. So, always redirecting it back to Addie. And, really did help us, limiting exposure in the beginning, because of those feelings are so raw and everything. So we would drop her off at daycare and the other parent would get her, we'd split 50-50. So that was pretty much been our, we've always had, we were able to eventually become like friends, and, and Addie jokes because she's like, I can't even picture you guys together because our personalities are so different, but, we tease each other and everything. So we're fine. He knows my husband and I, know his girlfriend and stuff. So, making it about the kid is definitely one of the biggest, I hear a lot of parents struggle with that, and including in my blended family, there's a lot of struggle and challenge with that. But she's a great kid, though. She's definitely
oh my God, she is the best. And can I just say, so Linda, when I first asked you to come on, I mean, this was my main focus because I have never seen divorcees act the way they do around each other, like you and your ex-husband, and you guys co-parent with such ease and peace. I was blown away by it, and you really are friends. And I don't know how long it took you guys to get there, and I'm sure people out there might be curious about that. But so I know Linda personally. She's one of my clients, and she also goes to our church, and I have met your ex-husband, and the way you guys co-parent, it really is incredible. I don't think I've ever seen it like the way you guys do it before. So definitely share your secrets. And I think putting Addie first, I mean, is that your biggest tip for people out there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My biggest advice would be, like I had mentioned, don't make it about yourself and your ex. Like, whatever it is, even if you don't end in good terms, I can't even say divorce ever ends in really good terms, but
Right.
whatever the hurt may be, if someone wronged the other person, just directing it, hey, that kid wasn't asked to be here. The kid, you had that child. It's not that child's fault that you guys it couldn't work between you. So, just reminding yourself that that child is 50% Darcy and 50% me. So that means if I say something, oh, your dad is X, Y, and Z, that child, like Addie, would internalize and say, well, that's part of me. So that means I must be that way. Like, you must not like that about me. So just kind of reminding yourself that, it's about what's best for your child.
Yeah.
And it did take us, we were really good in the beginning. And then we went through a kind of a rough patch where it did get hard to communicate with him. So I would say the first year was okay. And then by year 2, because I'll take a step back, a lot of people don't understand our relationship either. Not necessarily Kevin. Kevin understands it. Because he has a similar co-parenting with one of his exes, but like Darcy's had a hard time with a lot of girls, women that he's dated, and they have been in divorced, so they have other co-parenting situations as well. But because him and I don't argue and scream and yell at each other, and we're on the phone, we talk, we discuss things specific to Addie, and then that's it. And then we're done, get off and that's it. And, we're fine. He did have one person that was really, really challenging with this, so that kind of put a tension on our like co-parenting Addie. So that was a big challenge, is when other people come into to mix.
So they were like jealous, Linda, or just
they were. I don't know. Like, there was jealousy. There was not understanding. Even though I was in a relationship, the other person, like, well, why are you talking to that person? And it wasn't even that I was talking to him just like as a, hey, how's it going? Tell me about your life. It was just anytime we talked, or mostly text, would be about Addie. But a lot of other people don't get that. So that caused a little bit of issues for us, I guess for him and I. Like, one thing I did tell Kevin, my husband, was that, Darcy is family. He is a part of Addie's life. He will always be part of Addie's life. And that therefore, I'm going to be in contact with him whenever there's something going on with Addie, whether it's, if it's her health, there's grades, or something's going on, with her, or planning something. I'm going to pick up the phone and have a conversation with him about it. So, I need you to be okay with that. And, not a lot of people are okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of waiting, like when I was with you guys for Addie's quinceanera, in my mind, I was like waiting for it to be awkward, but it like wasn't at all. It was very just like he was a part of the family, and that's really what blew me away. I was like, this is really cool. Like, I think this is how it should always be. Now, Addie is in high school now, and she really is such a good kid. And like, I even asked you, I'm like, what did you do? Because I have a 9-year-old. I'm like, how do you get her to love studying and like all this? But has it become more challenging as she's gotten older, or has it gotten easier?
Some parts have gotten easier and some parts have gotten more challenging. As far as like the studying goes, that takes a lot of arguing in the beginning, like starting little, like 5 and up. We would do our little flashcards, and kids don't want to do homework or whatever. You try to make it fun when they're little, but then it gets to a point where even on summer breaks, we would make sure that Shen has like a summer program for each subject. So we would make her do, an hour a week, or like 10 minutes a day or something, just to make sure that she's still, not forgetting things. Because, that summer break, she did have one class where she struggled because she couldn't remember what she did the last year. So we started when she was little, making sure that she does summer program, and then sometimes, so like that part, that consistency. I think that's really what it is. It's consistency. You know, if
In
I have
both households, like in both.
both
Okay.
households, but I will say, because in our household there's a parent that we struggle with that, but even if you're consistent in your household and the other parent's not consistent in their household, I would say just be consistent. Sit there with the kid. A lot of parents, you know, there's stuff that they're learning that I don't really remember, but either I will go through the planning with her, or just sit there just for motivational support. Just say, I'm here. I'll just grab a book and I'll sit while you read or while you're doing this, just so you know that you're not alone. And if you have a question or if you feel frustrated, just tell me I'm frustrated. You know, like, let's talk it out instead of sitting in their room and like spinning. But the studying, she's been disciplined with, and she's been good. But that took a lot of challenging, like it was very challenging in the beginning, just to get her into that habit. But like I said, if consistency and like schedule really does help. And I am fortunate because Darcy really pushes it as well. There are households where not both parents are on the same page, but if one parent is consistent, then I think that really does help. The other part of that is, now that she's in that 15, 16-year-old dating stage where boys are starting to be
this is the new challenge.
This is the new challenge. This is the you know, she wants to be out, and you're like, why am I stuck here doing homework, and you know, when all my friends are out, and I want to do this, and I want to just go on the phone and talk to this boy that I'm, you know, interested in or whatever. So, you know, I just kind of have to, her dad and I both are on the same page, or we just like redirect her, you know, hey, you know, time management, you can see your friends, you know, that's for the weekends. Or if you have a light day, then, you know, you should always, you know, we push like Bible study. You know, I want her to make time for her and God, and, you know, whatever that may look like, and time for self-care, you know. So in order to do that, I'm trying to teach her time management, task management. I said, sometimes you're just going to have to like not be perfect at everything, because she tries to. That's just not obtainable. So I think that's the stage that right now we're in, is that time to manage the time, being okay with falling behind in some stuff, because, you know, self-care is so important, you know, that a lot of these kids get so stressed out, and like I don't want her to like end up burning out or depressed or anything like that for homework, you know. So that's probably our new challenge, is managing the workload, the amount of workload that she has. You know, she's in all these honors classes, and they are a tremendous amount of workload. Plus she has her friend group, and then family time. You know, there's all the buckets.
Yeah. That's definitely a new era.
Yeah. Do you guys still do 50-50?
We do.
With Darcy? Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, I can.
That does help. Yeah, that does help to
Yeah.
have the 50-50. And then dedicating one-on-one time is really important too. Like throughout, you know, your years, you know, being a step parent. I have other kids too, but I always try to dedicate one-on-one time with her.
Yeah.
It's really
Well,
important.
that was going to be my next question. So you remarried and now you have 3 other children. So what is co-parenting with your new husband like? Is it completely different than with Addie and Darcy, or like, do you find it to be the same?
It's completely different.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that would be my number one advice for anyone looking to get into a marriage with children from another person, is to respect the parents' rules and boundaries and how they parent, you know, like not to parent those kids, but to be like a bonus parent for those kids. So, you know, Addie, you know, I've parent, and it's tough for the biological kid, because, you know, she would ask, well, why do I have to do that when they don't do that? You know, and I would always tell her, you know, well, I don't make the rules for her dad and her mom do. So now it's, you know, I make the rules, your dad and I make the rules for you. So this is just the way it is. So it did present challenges. We still, you know, have struggles with some things, but for the most part, you know, his kids, his rules. We have house rules that we both agreed on, and we have house expectations that we both agree on. And I would definitely recommend that, like whether it's chores or whatever it may be, and respect for the house in general, that we're on the same page. But yeah, as far as other stuff, it will save you some gray hairs to not try to parent your stepkids on top of parenting your biological kids.
Yeah,
sure.
I love that. I mean, I feel like house rules, I feel like that sounds so important because I mean, you're living there too, and so is your daughter, and you do want to be united. But I get what you're saying, where they already have two parents, so you're like a bonus parent. And does the same go for Addie? Like, he doesn't try to parent Addie like you and Darcy do that, or?
Yeah, he does not. He respects that as well. So I parent Addie. I make the rules for her outside of the house rules. But yeah, he's respectful of how we parent Addie, and he's also adopted some of the things that we've done, and I've adopted some of the stuff that he's done as well.
That's awesome.
Now, did you guys talk about that before you got married, like your expectations of parenting?
That was probably one of the failures of that we did in the beginning, because we're just learning. I would ask him, well, why don't you do this with your kids? I do this with my kid. I'm just curious. Not that I parented his kid, but we had that conversation. And then we would just kind of put our point of view out on the table, and then we'd either disagree or agree. So it kind of was like a learning curve for both of us, because I'm saying something to my kid, and then he's saying something to his kid, and then the kids are just like, what's happening? So by the time it took us about 6 months to a year to actually get into a groove of like, all right, I get it now. Like we understand, you do your thing, I do my thing. And then we come together if either one of us have a challenge or an issue. And then we've always had the house rules and like the chores and expectations. So that piece was okay. But as far as learning to it's really hard too as a step.
Yeah.
You want to say some stuff, but you just you have to keep it quiet. And for me, it's really hard. But if the kid comes to me and asks me for advice or whatever, I 100% will talk to them and give them my advice. But I always, my disclaimer is always, well, did you ask, the first thing I asked, did you ask your parent about it? Did you ask your mom or your dad about it? And if they say yes, no. If they say no, I advise them, well, why don't you talk to your mom or your dad first, and then you can talk to me. And then if they did, and then they're coming to me, then I'll tell them, this is my opinion. Your parents have the final say, but this is, how I feel about this. And then I will give advice, my opinion of whatever that they have. I try to make sure to say, your parent has the final say.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Was it
awesome?
Yeah. Was it nerve-wracking for Darcy, when you were remarrying? How did he feel about that? Was he worried about your co-parenting and stuff?
Yeah, he was nervous. He knows me though. He knows me enough. And at that point he knew that Addie came first. And same with him. I'm not nervous about who he ends up with, because Addie always comes first. So I think he knew that I'm strong enough to say, here's the boundaries, here's my boundaries. This is she's my responsibility, and not, not worry about. But they did meet, I made sure that they met and they talked and all this other stuff. So they knew each other before him and I got married.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't, I don't think it was more than a day of concern, to be honest, after, meeting him and talking me. And
yeah. But again, I think that goes back to you guys have such a great relationship, because I think a lot of people that are divorced wouldn't go and get approval from their ex, and I think that's just really, really cool. And again, it just shows that you guys are on the same page, and you really truly care about not just each other, but Addie's well-being, and being united is the best thing for Addie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I would even recommend, if it's a really bad breakup, I would recommend just taking, kind of limiting that exposure to that person so you can heal, talk to a therapist, counselor, mediators. There's apps even that you can have where it's court ordered apps. So then it's basically one parent. You can text through the app, and then that's recorded. So if there's anything, you know, so you can have a mediator or whatever, if it's really volatile, just so you're not yelling, you know, telling the kid, oh, your parent is, you know, this and that, and like taking it out on the parent or the kid, or the kid hearing you screaming back and forth. You know, that's how I grew up. My parents in the beginning did not like each other, and I swore I would never do that if I was in that situation. So I think having that space, like him and I did have that space in the beginning, like the drop off. So we limited our exposure, and that helped to just kind of get through the process of divorce and healing and moving forward. And then we can get to a point where we can have those small talks, and then more. And then now I have an open door. You know, same with him. If he wants to come over and say hi to her, he can come over anytime. Mm-hmm. Same with my husband's parents. You know, they're welcome here anytime. We've had them here for Halloween. Like their kids will come here, and that's how I would like it. You know, we're all family, and you know, all the personal stuff, that's not the kid's fault. That should never be brought up in front of, you know.
Yeah. So. I grew up with divorced parents too, and I first of all want to commend you, because it's not easy, I'm sure, to have, you know, something hurt you and then be big enough to just say, listen, this does hurt me, but I'm going to be the bigger person and do this for my kid. Like, that's huge. So that's amazing, first off. But also, my parents were not as mature as you are as far as like co-parenting with other people and blah, blah, blah. But they were friends eventually, and we always did holidays together. It was always at my grandpa's. They always were here for birthdays together. Even sometimes Thursday dinners, they would both be here at my grandpa's. And so looking back, just what a blessing that was. So I just want you to know, like, your kids moving forward are gonna it's gonna be such a blessing for them. And they're just going to be so happy that you guys did that for them, because that's so big. Not a lot of people do. Even Kyle, when he met my family, he's like, this is a little, I mean, we met in high school, and he came for a dinner, and everyone was here, including my dad, who it's not my dad's dad, it's my mom's dad. And he was like, this is weird. And then he like saw everything. He's like, this is not actually weird at all. Like, they're completely normal. Like, you guys were all talking, no one's fighting, like everything was completely fine. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't it be? Like, I didn't even realize there was a difference. But now I'm like, geez, they really did that part right. They did it so right when they did that.
Yeah, you're definitely doing something right, Linda, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I kind of felt the same way, Allie, like Kyle did going in when I met your family. Linda, I was like, this is incredible. Like, because I think, you know, a lot out there with divorce and co-parenting, you do see a lot of hurt, right? I mean, and they can't get past that hurt, and their ego's so hurt that they not necessarily take it out on the kid, but it's not a good united front. They're not united as friends and parents, you know, because you're right. You don't lose. You're still a parent, even though you're not in that relationship anymore. You guys are still parents together. And I think, like you said, you really have to remember that, because you don't see that. You see just a broken kind of front a lot of the times. And yeah, you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And you can clearly see it with Addie. She's just the sweetest and so smart and so confident. And yeah, she's awesome.
Thanks. We're definitely blessed with that kid.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have put in so much work. And yeah, I think that is such a huge point to put out there too. And you're so honest about it. You're like, you know, it's not easy. You're going to have to put in the work to do it. It doesn't just happen. You know, you really have to put in that consistent work.
It's funny because there's been plenty of times where I'm like a 9 p.m. bedtime person. I love it. I want to be in my pajamas. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yeah, bedtime. And then one of the kids just like hits me with like this crazy bombshell of a question. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Hey, let's do this. And like hours go by, you know, talking. You know, that's just, it's, you know, it's that whole comes back to, it's not about you. You know, this kid needs help, and you're the only one that is the parent, you know, right there at that moment. And that's your responsibility, is to take care of them, to help them, to be there for them, to guide them. And even if you're tired or angry or whatever it is, you know, it's just to always bring it back to, this is a little person that you're developing into a big person, you know, like who's going to be a functioning adult one day and have relationships. And yeah.
So what tools do you recommend, or like what do you do to put your own stuff aside? Because I find myself sometimes having trouble with that. Like if I'm having a really hard day or something, it's hard for me to just put on a smile with my kids and be like, everything's great. And I'd love to sit and talk for 3 hours about whatever, you know? So how do you put that stuff aside and just be there for them?
So there's a few things I do, and then I like journaling, whatever your self-care is. So like either journaling, I like my Bible, either the physical Bible or I do Bible plans, really help. Counseling helps, hot showers, music, but honestly, honesty with them. Sometimes I'm feeling down, and I used to say I can't let them see me cry or sad or anything like that. And I'm like, you know what? They're sad and they have bad days, and I want them to know that it's okay to have bad days, you know? So if I'm tired of like, okay, I'll tell them I'm a little tired today, but let's talk. Let's talk. What do you want to talk about? And I just take a deep breath, ask God for help. And then, either get tea or something like that. Or I say, just give me a minute. Okay. Like if I'm just not in a good mood or something, I'll tell them, why don't you go grab like a glass of water or something or a blanket, and I'll meet you on the couch, in like 5 minutes. Just to give yourself, just to go in like the other room, just take a deep breath and do whatever you need to do just to kind of decompress a little bit and then go back and then be present. But it's okay to have those times for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And why do kids always come to you at night? Like I find this too with my daughter. I'm like, I asked you these questions at like 3 p.m. Why at my bedtime you're coming to one? And I love my sleep too, so it is hard. So I'm gonna try these strategies for sure, because I do have to remind myself. I'm like, all right, this is important. She wants to talk to me. I'm gonna listen. But
it's hard.
Tough. It's tough.
Sometimes
What'd you say, Allie?
Listen, sometimes they pick the worst times.
Seriously.
Like at night at 6:30 in the morning when you're waking up and making lunches, and it's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah. The other thing I do is sometimes if it's going too late, like I could tell when the kid, we all have our bewitching hour, right? We're either tired or sick or hungry or whatever it may be. I could usually tell if it's like if they're just spinning. So they tell me what's wrong and then they're just spinning. I let them talk, but then it comes to a point where like, all right, you have to go to bed. So I'll usually say, okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about this more, and then have a comforting, I'm always here for you. I understand, so validating and like for sure saying, I'm not ending this conversation. We will talk about it tomorrow, and like put it on your calendar to talk about the next day. And honestly, 50%, probably more, I would say 90% of the time, they don't want to talk about the next day, but just so they know and they can like go to bed with like a release, we say our prayer and like, whatever it may be, but it's the spinning part, that is what I've been trying. That's the other part I'm with Addie right now, is like when they start spinning, because now she's the what ifs and all this stuff. Now she's thinking about her future. So, just trying to bring it back to, let's get it out, but then let's make a plan to talk about it tomorrow or something.
Well, there's something to say about like sleeping on it too, right? Because like they kind of get it out and then you can think about it overnight and you wake up and you're like, this is a brand new day. Maybe I feel good about it. I feel more confident about it. Yeah. That's a good idea. I love that. So true. Yeah. What were you going to say, Allie?
No, I don't think.
Oh, I thought you started to say something.
No, I was saying that's so good.
Yeah. So good. Linda, I love that. That is, I'm definitely going to do all these things. Thank you so much.
Those are really good ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share, Linda, to people listening today? Any more tips that you have that you think parents would need when they're either going through a divorce or they're co-parenting right now?
I think I'm trying to think if I hit everything. I feel there's so many pieces.
Well, there is so much to your story too, because in the last year you went through a pretty severe illness. I don't know if you want to share about that and just like how did that change co-parenting for you?
Yep. So I was diagnosed with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. It's kind of like a stroke. So it left me with facial paralysis. I still have a little bit of it. And then I was bedridden for a couple months, and then wasn't able to walk on my own for a few months, and then tired a lot more. So before, I used to be the one with like the 50 bags on her, and like as she's vacuuming or like doing whatever, and then like in between meetings and like running a kid here or there. And then so I went from that to being in bed like 24/7 for several months, or sleeping, or because I have head pain or the exhaustion. So that did put a lot on Kevin, so Kevin had to step up, and Darcy actually had to step up. So I couldn't drive. I haven't been able to drive for a year. So, having that good relationship with Darcy did help, and Kevin, because Kevin and Darcy were communicating during this time and saying, hey, Addie needs to go here. Can you take Addie here? And, so Darcy's done like all the driving, or Kevin if Darcy can't. So it's all that. So communication amongst the parents were really important. And then being the honesty with the kids, this is what happened to me. I will be okay. I don't know what it looks like, but, I'm limited. However, I put a chair like by the bed, and I said, I'm still here to listen, and he's still here to talk, so they would come over, Addie would come home from school and just sit at the chair and tell me about her day. And, helping the kids had to help. So they would bring me food, or in the beginning, like I couldn't feed myself. So like Addie would help, Kevin would feed me, Emily, or, the girls would bring stuff up or help me walk when I was unable to walk fully on my own. So it did help. It did put, stress on the family for sure. Me going from doing as much as I did to doing nothing really. That was a big stressor. But it did help the family unit, I guess, come closer and work together. And, so it was really special too. And I think if we didn't have that good relationship with all of the parents, it probably would not have been as good for Addie, for instance, because, I'm the one that it impacted her the most.
Yeah.
That was the big.
That's incredible. I mean, how are you feeling now? Are you feeling better?
So I'm like 90% there. I still have the head pain. I still have good days and bad days. But, I'm not using a cane. Most days I'm not using a cane. So I'm hoping to be driving soon. My dizziness is getting a little bit better. So I'm getting there. I'm like way better than I was last year. So I can't complain, thank God every day for that.
Yeah.
And, I lost my hearing. So I'm just adjusting to that, and the kids, one of my kids is extremely loud, so it's fine. But the other ones are already getting to know, which side to talk to me on. I'm like, I can't hear you. But it's just, we make
You're so strong.
Yeah.
You're so strong. Yeah, such an inspiration.
Yeah, you really are. Thank you for sharing, Linda. This was, amazing. I think it's going to help so many people.
For sure.
I'm glad I could share. If I'm missing anything, I don't know. I'm welcome anyone asking questions or, whatever.
Yeah, I can definitely tag your Facebook in it if someone wants to DM you or if they have any questions. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you again, Linda. You guys have a good day.
All right, you too.
All right, bye.